Spartanburg. It was a drive up there, a intense game. Excuse me, and then a drive back, so they get back to their apartments late at night, and then they got a quick turnaround to play a game. So, we acted pretty tired after the game on opening day, and so, I challenged them to be ready to go. We gave some new guys an opportunity, thinking that having some guys that haven't played that much or not at all, in fact, that they might give us some real energy out there, and that's exactly what happened. So it was a good win for us tonight. We really started swinging the bats well. I thought some guys coming out of the bullpen really pitched great. Specifically Gregoire, Dudley, Zach Russell threw great. Am I forgetting somebody? Did anybody else come out of the bullpen? That was it, I think, right? Oh, and Hudson Lee, he threw great too. So that was really a great thing for our team. When you get to play a lot of guys, and they're all recruited here for a reason, because they're good baseball players. They get an opportunity to play, and they show that, and it shows the depth that we have. It shows on the mound and with our position players. So it was a really good night for us. I'm really happy about the way they played tonight.
All right, number one is this going to be the theme of the season? Is how they respond in back-to-back days or late night game followed by afternoon game? Like, have we set a precedent already after game one, essentially?
I think a little bit.
Did we?
I think it's going to be an area of concern until we're far enough away that it's not anymore. And again, the weather's coming in this weekend. You could be forced into a doubleheader at some point. How do you respond to that? How do you look in the third game of that? It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, you got a weekend series against Clemson next weekend in 3 different locations. So how do you handle the moving and the travel and all that kind of stuff in addition to playing a tough team? I think it's kind of a wait and see. Again, they've handled their business the last 2 nights, which is good to see. And hopefully the Northern Kentucky thing was just first weekend jitters. But that's going to be something that's at the back of our mind until we've seen enough to think, okay, well, that's just not a thing anymore.
I will say what Paul Mainieri had to say about them bouncing back, because he is right. I get it. And look, I get it also that these are young kids, and they're not on a yellow school bus, right? They're not riding a bus like we rode to high school athletic events, whether yours was wrestling, mine was basketball. They're on some nicer buses there. So coming back from, it's not like, they're cramped up coming back from Spartanburg. But with that being said, I do think it is good to see them bounce back with that question that you and I discussed that people were a little upset about on Tuesday when we came back, as it pertained to, how can you be tired after 2 games on the opening day?
And if Mainieri doesn't say what he said on Saturday, I think we can kind of piece together that maybe there would have been a little bit of fatigue, but him directly addressing like, hey, these guys were tired, we didn't take BP before the game, like that flags it as more of a red flag when your coach is specifically talking about it. So, yeah, until we see enough of a track record otherwise, we're going to have this in the back of our mind like, hey, wait a minute, they might run into a situation where they're fatigued again. Hopefully not. But that is something we're going to have on the concern meter for a while.
Well, one other thing that's kind of occurring to me with this, when I initially heard it, it felt like he was making kind of an excuse for his team. Oh, we lost game 3. We lost the Saturday game because they were tired. They played 18 innings. That was the way I perceived the comments. But then after hearing him talk about it, I believe it was last night, was it yesterday, after the Wofford game, hearing him kind of be like, hey, we had the crowd there. Our guys got to be better at that. Like, it was kind of a message to his team, like, you can't do that.
Sure. And
it's changed my opinion on what he said about the game. Because, again, as he said it Saturday, I'm kind of like, man, you're making an excuse for your team in their performance and why they lost. And now I kind of go back like, he got that out of the way early and kind of called him out. And then he mentioned it again there. Hey, he challenged them, and they responded last night.
Well, again, it's kind of pointing at it, saying, hey, you had everything you needed to be successful in that game, and you weren't able to do it. Now, again, they didn't get blown out. They had a situation where KJ Scobie could have been the hero 2 games in a row. It just ended up materializing that way. But, yeah, it's one of those things that, and we talk about this all the time, coaches use the medium of press conferences to talk to their players sometimes. And I think that was a direct message to his players like, hey, you guys need to straighten this up. You guys need to get this better because we can't have this being a consistent issue throughout the season. And again, in the 2 games we've seen since then, they've handled their business and haven't looked fatigued, and hopefully that continues.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Also last night, Paul Mainieri talked a little bit about what Tyler brought up, and that was the debut of Will Craddock. Here is what Paul Mainieri had to say regarding Will Craddock's debut.
I just love me some Will Craddock, to be honest with you. He's been such a fun kid to be around and to coach. And from the day he arrived on campus in the summer even, when he was here in the summer, just a great kid. He's always smiling. He's just so pleasant to be around. And he don't let that smile and that pretty face fool you, though. He's a tiger. I mean, he's a competitor, and he wants to get in there. And he's more than held his own in scrimmage games in the fall as well as in the preseason here. I think the thing I'm most proud about him tonight was how he hung in there with 2 strikes all the time. He drew a walk there at the end. I think he hit that triple, if I'm not mistaken, with 2 strikes on him. So he's starting to recognize pitches a little bit better, the off-speed pitches. But listen, he impacts the ball. He impacts the game. He's going to be I've been telling you this from day one. He's going to be a special player here, and the more he plays, the better he's going to get. He's not going to be perfect. He's not going to reach base 5 times every game. But trust me, he's going to have some days where, the game looks a little, Greek to him. But. He's going to continue to get better. There's no question in my mind about it. He's got all the qualities. I've been around a lot of great players in my coaching career, and I think Will's got a chance to be a really, really outstanding one. Just got to figure out where to play him. We got to make sure we got to find a way to get him into the lineup because he makes an impact on the ball game.
It's a little man crush Thursday for you. Paul Mainieri on Will Craddock.
Hey, I think we're all feeling that a little bit right now. Great performance last night, and hopefully it continues.
803-404-6100. We'll come back, get into a little college football. How hot is Kalen DeBoer's seat at Alabama, and how is that in reference to South Carolina and Shane Beamer? We'll talk about it. It's the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. Let me ask you, if you had a leak recently, well, if you haven't, great for you. But if you're suffering from some issues, if your home or your business has been dealing with some roofing issues, it's time for you to call Mid-State Roofing, where they're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know if you're aware of this. Leaks cannot tell time. They just occur, and you need to get that fixed as quickly as possible. And with Mid-State Roofing, if this leak occurs at 11 p.m., at midnight, at 1 a.m., they are there with you to help you with an on-call technician. The phone number, 803-356-1919. Mid-State Roofing has a proven history, and that is your assurance that their professionals will provide proper advice, service, and results basically for the needs of your facility. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 803-404-6100 if you hear something you want to weigh in on this afternoon. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair as we roll right through. Again, just as I was talking, though, reminder, tomorrow we will take you up to about 1:40 and turn it over for South Carolina Army over at Founders Park. I meant to look that up during the break and see who would be on the call tomorrow. I'll get that so that I'll know who we are turning it over to tomorrow. But should be a lot of fun this weekend if we can get the weather to hold out. Football, always a little bit of football news and notes going on. And Paul Feinbaum, who just says stuff, random stuff. But I can kind of agree with this. Now, Tyler, I think pressure and hot seat are two different words.
They are, yeah.
Well, yeah, they're definitely two different words. But they also have, I think two different meanings.
You can be under a lot of pressure without being on the hot seat. Can you be on the hot seat without being under a lot of pressure, though? Does it work both ways?
No. Pressure is just the what do I want to say? The constraints of the job. I think you're always under pressure if you're at Alabama. The tolerance for losing is extremely low. But with that being said, I feel like it's a safe bet that Kalen DeBoer can win 8 games next year. And if he wins 8 games, he's not fired. They're not going to fire him. That would be where I go because
they'd be very disappointed. But I don't think they kick him to the curb just for winning 8 games.
Yeah, again, but Paul Feinbaum says Kalen DeBoer is the coach that is under the most pressure going into 2026 in the SEC.
And pressure is different for everyone. So the pressure that DeBoer is facing is not the same pressure that Beamer's facing here, and it all depends on where the program is. And DeBoer's pressure is really not just to get back to the playoff, to do something in it, right? They won the game against Oklahoma, but then they got just pantsed by Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Now everybody pretty much got pantsed by Indiana with the exception of Miami, obviously. So there's not a ton of shame in that, but Alabama is now kind of flirting with being a just good program, right? Like the eliteness of what they were at the height of the dynasty with Nick Saban is kind of gone, right? And hiring Kalen DeBoer, who was coming off of a national championship appearance with Washington, was done to keep the train rolling with Alabama being, again, a power in college football. And I don't doubt his ability to continue to win around 9 to 10 games and get him in the playoff mix every single year. But I think everybody there is waiting to see that next gear of like, hey, this is legitimately a national championship caliber team, because in 2 seasons we haven't really seen that.
But is that a byproduct of, like, you always hear the adage, you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy.
Right.
And is this a true byproduct of that? Because DeBoer's doing fine. He's doing, but nobody could live up to what Nick Saban did. There's nobody out there.
Absolutely not, which is, why nobody, there's a lot of names people threw out there like, oh, he's to replace Saban. Well, that guy wasn't going to do that because you're going to be held to an impossible standard. And if you're not winning a national championship within your first 2 to 3 years, they're going to be ready to run you out of town. Again, what he's doing at Alabama would be admirable at 99% of programs across the country, but Alabama's different. And that is a fan base that doesn't want to have to reset their expectations every single year because they got used to winning at such a high clip for such a long time. So they're like, okay, we need you to come up to our level. We don't want to have to come down to your level.
And now I will say, and I think we talked a couple weeks ago about memorable moments, the most memorable moments. And I think one of them I had was the Alabama loss to Indiana, because I do feel like that was the end. That was the final nail in the coffin of the true Alabama dynasty. That doesn't mean Alabama's not a good football team. It doesn't mean that they're not going to make the playoffs next year. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be challenging for a national championship. But I think that was the official end of the Nick Saban aura, if you will. Now it is truly, all right, it's Kalen DeBoer's ball club. It's a new team. It's a new program. It's new everything. However, this new world of this new world for Alabama features you being on the same plane, as you just said, as Ohio State, as apparently Indiana, as Miami, as you get the point, Georgia, and no longer even in your down year where you lose a game or two and you don't win a championship, no longer are you still head and shoulders above them.
Right. And look, the entire sport has a lot more parity across it. So even if Saban had continued to coach, I think everything would have plateaued out a little bit more. I think you'd still give him the benefit of the doubt because he is Nick Saban and he's the greatest coach of all time. But yeah, I think there's an acceptance with the Alabama fan base of, hey, we're kind of in line with everybody else right now. We're not head and shoulders above anyone. And if anything, you look at the Ohio States, look at the Indianas, and you might say, well, right now you're maybe kind of a step or two behind those guys. Can you get yourself back on that level to being in the national championship conversation? I think that's where that pressure comes from for Kalen DeBoer.
803-404-6100. Another coach that I would say is under a lot of pressure, but again, not on the hot seat, would be Steve Sarkisian. And the reason I say that is because with Steve Sarkisian, we know that Texas has invested a lot of money into that program. They're expecting the time to be now. And Steve Sarkisian, even though, again, not going to be fired unless something goes completely haywire or something off the field. But the problem with Steve Sarkisian is you got to win with what they're investing, and you got to do it now. And this will bring us back to Shane Beamer in just a minute.
Yeah, no, at Texas, there is no acceptable way to miss the playoff 2 years in a row. Now, yeah, was there controversy of like, okay, if they hadn't played Ohio State and beaten, Tarleton State and been 10-2, would they've gotten in? Probably. So he can use that as an excuse to some degree. But this year, for sure, especially with Arch Manning coming back for another year, theoretically being better than he was in his first year as a starter, you have to go out there and be able to make the playoff and make a deep run because they've been getting so close. They've been in the semifinals twice. This year was a step back. You have to get yourself back to that mark, if not go further this upcoming season.
And then number 3 on my list, if you're doing that, would indeed be Shane Beamer. I don't know of another coach in the league. I think Josh Heupel is fine at Tennessee. I don't feel like there's anything going on there. Kirby Smart's fine at Georgia. Maybe again they're kind of like, hey, maybe more driving classes in the off season to work. But I don't think anybody's worried. John Summerall's brand new guy. Alex Golish at Auburn's a brand new guy. Will Stein at Kentucky's a brand new guy. So I'm with Pete Golding. Maybe there's some pressure on Pete Golding, but again, nothing kind of there. Mike Elko, I think, is perfectly so third on my list would indeed be Shane Beamer.
I think it's fair, and again, it's a different type of pressure compared to Texas and Alabama on what the expectations are. You don't have to make the playoff if you're Shane Beamer to save your job. You know what I mean?
He set a
precedent.
Yeah.
But if Carolina goes out there and wins 8 games and, I don't know, plays in the Citrus Bowl again, Beamer's not getting fired, right? That's enough to keep the ball rolling. And again, that's different compared to Texas and Alabama.
I'll take it a step further because I don't think 8 wins gets Sarkisian or DeBoer fired. 7
could.
7 for those two.
For those two.
But I'll say this. I think, I'm not saying it's right before y'all jump down my throat. I think 7-5 and Beamer's fine. I think 6-6 and he's fine. Which is why there's a different. That's why I have him.
Yeah.
That's why we say different. He can go. I think he goes 6-6 and he's fine.
It depends on how that 6-6 looks.
Well, that's very true.
And what we know about the teams they're going to play and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to commit to that at this point. But I think you have a fair point on that being something that is acceptable because for Carolina, historically speaking, you've never been a team that's always in the mix for a national championship. You came close to making the playoff a couple years ago, but you should at least be routinely getting to bowl games. Missing bowl games 2 out of 3 years is something that this fan base will not accept. So step 1 is at least getting back to that mark of getting over that 6-1 hump and playing somewhere in the month of December because you didn't do that last year. You didn't do that back in 2023. So that's objective number 1. And what you do past that is gravy.
Okay. 803-404-6100. Text always in it says, I think if Beamer doesn't win 8 games, he's gone and he should be. I definitely don't think that's the case. I definitely don't think that's the case. I think that I think the bottom line is that 8, he's perfectly fine. Another texter said y'all just agreed. Let me go back. Y'all just agreed that 6-6 is fine. Y'all said it. We didn't say it's fine. What I'm saying is that it probably keeps him his job. See, y'all don't quite understand that. There's a difference there. It probably keeps him his job, whether you like it or not. You can get upset, and you can scream at us, and you can blame us. Another texter says mediocrity is us and 107.5. No, y'all are not listening. You have poor listening skills. I'm simply saying that probably keeps him his job because that's what I think will happen. We'll finish that conversation. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Final segment of the hour. Again, coming up at 1:30, we'll get into some NASCAR, where at least after 1 week, 35 weeks to go,
Yep.
Gunner's in the lead. We're barely off of the start line.
Yeah, but for the moment,
For the
you got
moment.
bragging rights.
For the moment, I got
Credit to you.
I got to do a little research real quick. 803-404-6100. Yeah, let me be clear about this. This is a great kind of a talking point here, because I'm not trying to disagree with y'all that 6-6 is acceptable and that you should be like, all right, that's a 2-game improvement over last year. All right, boy, are we heading in the right direction? Let me be clear on myself. You speak for yourself.
And there's a difference between acceptable to a fan base and acceptable to
Right.
the institution that would have to pay a buyout if they fired you, which, again, money's the big topic conversation across all men's sports this year.
Well, listen, it's why I said back in January, and we're watching it, and it's literally I honestly think we can have this conversation in about a month, and I know better what Jeremiah Donati is going to do after we see what happens with basketball, right? Like, literally, I think we can know, because, again, I'm not picking on Lamont Paris, but let's be honest, we're heading down the path of 2 of the worst basketball seasons in the history of South Carolina basketball. And if you want to keep him, all right.
And people listening have to understand that is a realistic possibility. It is not a foregone conclusion that he's gone, even if they end on, a 12-game losing streak or whatever it would be if they continue to lose out. There's a real possibility he could come back next year, and that buyout is a big part of that.
And I say that because I want you to think about this. If you've got 2 of the worst seasons, close to 2 of the worst seasons in basketball history, and you retain Lamont Paris, if we're talking about a 2-game improvement, which, again, I'm not trying to validate or tell you that that's acceptable or that you should be happy. I'm not going to say that. Shane Beamer said that we'll be looking at where they are in the playoff rankings.
Yes, he did set the bar high.
He did say that. All right. So,
and he would be answering he would have to answer those questions in November if they're not anywhere close to that.
And B, with that roster, yes, 8 wins is, to me, the bare minimum. Now, I can say I can see 7 because of you got to win some close games, and I've got to see.
And you're taking on a bunch of teams that were in the playoff last year and projected to be in this year. So schedule's hard, as it always is.
But to the point, anyway, we're not trying to tell y'all, except that's where it is. But that's also the difference between South Carolina and Texas and Alabama when we talk about these kind of our own halftime pressure rankings.
Yeah, and again, every program has a different set of expectations, and for Carolinas, it is to be consistently in bowl games, hopefully flirting around that 8 to 9 win mark, and if you can be in the playoff every handful of years, that's fantastic. Again, you haven't had the ability to do that yet. You came close 2 seasons ago, which made last year look all that much worse because you were right there, and you only need to take a small step forward to get yourself there, and you ended up taking 10 steps back.
Chris weighs in and says if Shane doesn't win more than 1 conference game, he should be fired. Well, theoretically, in that situation, let's just say they sweep the non-conference.
Yeah.
That's 5 wins. Yes, Chris, at that point.
Yeah.
That's another losing season. And
you're right
that's
back in the same boat. And again, it goes back to how, if you go 6-6, what does it look like, right? Because if you're beating Georgia and Alabama, but you're losing to Mississippi State and Kentucky, well, that's a different dynamic as opposed to you beating Mississippi State and Kentucky and you're losing on last-second field goals to get against Georgia and Alabama. You know what I mean? So
right.
there's much different ways on how a 6-6 or a 7-5 can happen that I do think factor in to how we feel about the season.
No, you're 100% right. And again, I'll say it, we put this out, we discussed it a few weeks ago. I think most people, you can get mad about it now, but it kind of depends. 7-5 with a victory over Clemson feels better than 7-5 with a loss to Clemson. If that makes sense, and you're kind of more concerned with it. 8-4 with a loss to Clemson, I'm not real sure how everybody kind of stands because of the playoff coming. Like, there's a lot, and it's to each his own on the opinion. And again, I want to be clear on this because I don't need to see Gunner and Tyler over here saying 6-6 is acceptable. It's not. It's not. Again, 8 wins.
We're not telling you have to accept it yourself. If you want to be upset with 6-6, you're more than in your right to do that. But that could be enough to keep them around, right? You know what I mean? Like that's a realistic possibility you have to accept. That like, hey, as much as you may hate a 6-6 season and going to the Birmingham Bowl or the Liberty Bowl or whatever, that might still be enough for Beamer to come back for 2027. That's just like a realistic part of this.
Yeah.
Much like, again, Lamont Paris having another bad season, he could still be back next year.
And again, that's why I think this particular conversation, I'm going to think that I have a better feel for Jeremiah Donati sometime around March 12th, March 13th, when the basketball season comes to an end. And that would kind of give me an idea of like, all right, how does South Carolina, because what we don't know, and it stinks that this is part of the conversation. I'm not going to lie to y'all. But it's what we don't know is how Jeremiah Donati and the university view the budget, how they see everything financially, Tyler, and what they feel is possible for them to be able to handle.
Yeah, and again, it's a different conversation if you move on from your men's basketball coach and if you move on from your baseball coach and have to spend those respective buyouts, as opposed to if you retain both those guys and theoretically have more money in your pocket in case the football season does go sideways. Again, nobody here is cheering for anybody to get fired, right? I'd love to have all these coaches back next year and all these guys, have enough success to justify that. Again, the Lamont Paris thing with men's basketball is a little bit farther down the road of understanding why people would want him gone, but I hope the baseball season's great, I hope the football season's great, and we're not having to talk about any buyouts, but what you do with your other two men's sports does have a bearing on how you view the football season.
Well, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Now, I will say, I said this a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, I can't remember. Think about this. If you were to do the buyout, I believe I had this number correct. If you were to do the buyout for all three men's head coaches, basketball, baseball, and football, I still don't think it equals up to what I believe it equaled 43 million is what I had, 26 to Shane, 12 to Lamont, and I think it's 5 and change to Maneri. So you're talking 43 million. Think about this. Penn State and LSU had no problem forking out $50 million plus to one sport.
Do you have that money?
Well,
that's the question. We don't know.
Hour 2 on the way. It's the halftime show. coming up in about 10 minutes. We're going to take down those Canadians.
Those polite people.
Women's hockey. That's the fun thing about the Olympics is that, and I was talking to my kids last night about this over dinner, because it is funny. This is actually funny. Like curling, I was watching curling before I came in. It was on this morning. We were taking on, I think, the Swedes. And it is funny how every 4 years, there's a bunch of people who all of a sudden become curling aficionados.
Yeah, and now there's apparently the cheating scandal. And I went on curling Reddit yesterday.
Oh?
And it's all lit up. There's people talking about everything on there. And we got screen grabs of the finger on it's the rock, right? Is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
Of like, you're pushing past this line.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, and look, every sport has its gray areas. I didn't realize there would be as much controversy in curling as there apparently, and people are touching the rock when it's being swept and all this stuff. Is
this because all of us at whatever age look at curling and like, I can do that.
I think so.
Like, is that why? Because you watch like the moguls or even the cross country skiing or any of the other stuff, the ice skating and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah.
And again, I say this with profound respect for every single Olympic athlete. It's the sport that everybody looks at and says that takes the least amount of athleticism to do. I'm not saying that's true, but that's how most people view curling. Like, oh, I don't know what that stance is they call it, where they launch it, right? But okay, I can get in a funny stance and then I can stand there and sweep to move the rock along. Doesn't seem too hard. Again, there's a lot of nuance and mechanics to this that we can't even begin to imagine. That is a reason why those guys and girls are on that stage being able to succeed. But I think most of us look at that and say, oh yeah, I could figure that out and do that myself at an Olympic level.
Well, we're all like, we could go to if our local establishment bar had out back an ice curling rink, we're all like, yeah, I go have like 6 to 12 beers and do ice curling with my buddies. You aren't having 6 to 12 beers and going out and doing whatever it is they're doing, whatever event it might be with skiing.
We watched last night the cross country skiing thing where they're going up the hill and down the hill, and like for one, the energy level you have to do that must be insane.
Do you see what happened? Not last night was the women's, but I've only seen the women's, the cross country skiing. But I mean, you see what happens to them when they come across the finish line.
Oh, they're dead.
Yeah.
They just fall over and those races are like 20, 30 minutes, and you're moving yourself on these giant skis uphill. Like, yeah, that looks like something that's pretty exhausting. And yeah, they just all collapse as soon as they come across the finish line.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think that's part of it. But we got women's hockey coming up here, gold medal match, and they're previewing it right now here. And this is a huge rivalry. And of course, we beat Canada like we owned them the other day, 5-0. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep you updated here. That's coming up in about 10 minutes. 803-404-6100. We've been talking baseball. Paul Mainieri's team last night with a dominant victory over Gardner-Webb. Let's be honest, it's Gardner-Webb. Take it for what it's worth. But Tyler, as we've kind of mentioned, it was a victory that, again, you can't lose these games. Now, that doesn't mean much because last year they didn't lose any high major. I don't know how you want to phrase it. They lost to North Carolina, but they didn't lose any games like this last year. I think it was 23-0 or 24-0.
Something like that. But yeah, against mid-major competition, they were undefeated, and that's what you're supposed to do. And if you didn't watch last night's game, and I told you, hey, Carolina ruled Gardner-Webb in 8 innings, you'd say, yeah, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. If you didn't watch Saturday's game and I say South Carolina lost to Northern Kentucky 3-2, you'd say, well, how'd that happen? That's not what's supposed to happen. Like, you're just supposed to naturally be leaps and bounds better than these teams. Doesn't always work out that way, but last night was the most satisfying victory we've seen through the first 5 games because you went out there and did exactly what you're supposed to do against an opponent like that.
Here's Paul Mainieri last night after the game, his thoughts on the victory and how his team performed.
As far as tonight goes, I thought it was a great game for us, obviously. I really challenged the guys last night after we won up in Spartanburg. It was a drive up there, an intense game, and then a drive back, so they get back to their apartments late at night, and then they got a quick turnaround to play a game. So, we acted pretty tired after the game on opening day, and so, I challenged them to be ready to go. We gave some new guys an opportunity, thinking that having some guys that haven't played that much or not at all, in fact, that they might give us some real energy out there, and that's exactly what happened. So it was a good win for us tonight. We really started swinging the bats well. I thought some guys coming out of the bullpen really pitched great. Specifically Gregoire, Dudley, Zach Russell threw great. Am I forgetting somebody? Did anybody else come out of the bullpen? That was it, I think, right? Oh, and Hudson Lee, he threw great too. So that was really a great thing for our team. When you get to play a lot of guys, and they're all recruited here for a reason, because they're good baseball players. They get an opportunity to play, and they show that, and it shows the depth that we have. It shows on the mound and with our position players. So it was a really good night for us. I'm really happy about the way they played tonight.
He readdressed the thing on from the weekend, the fatigue issue, which, again, I think, we'll kind of monitor, but I think if you win games, that'll go away. And, again, as this little story, this little tiny early season story has evolved, Tyler, I'm kind of proud of Paul Mainieri. Not that he needs my approval or me to be proud of him, but I now view it in a different light than the way I heard it on Saturday.
Yeah, having a little bit more foresight on that after a couple days, it does make a little bit more sense now. And again, we overreact. That's what our business is. And when you have the performance on Saturday and then your coach saying, hey, these guys just weren't ready on the opening weekend of the season, it's going to worry us. And again, I think that message obviously came across clear. We'll obviously see what they do this weekend, because you're going to have 3 more games. And based on weather, you could run into another doubleheader. So hopefully that doesn't rear its ugly head once again. But you've done your job the past 2 days, which is exactly what you needed to do against Wofford and obviously Gardner-Webb. And again, we can feel good today, coming off the win, the way that you won that game last night.
803-404-6100 tonight, 8:30. South Carolina takes on Alabama in women's basketball. The game will be in Tuscaloosa. This is Dawn Staley yesterday talking about her ball club. They are closing in. Number 11, Mr. Dave. Number 11, Captain Dave. Her ball club closing in on another SEC regular season title. Here's what she had to say.
I don't have a feel, but I do have a feel, and I always act on what I feel, and I feel like, sometimes I feel like we've exhaled, because, the LSU game was a big game for us as far as just another win, another tie-breaking win, right? And then we got Alabama on the road, who plays extremely well at home and always has, and we always had issues there. Just have to remind them what's at stake. You've done a pretty good job with, winning 11 games in our league thus far. You got to finish it. Just got to finish it, because there's nothing more gratifying than winning. Like, your hard work produces championships, because a lot of times it doesn't produce a championship, and we control our own destiny. So hopefully they understand that. If not, we'll continue to remind them.
So make sure you catch some of that tonight. We'll see the women's team again. They're closing with a difficult, I'd say a difficult little stretch here. Obviously, they'll be favored in all the games. They'll be the better team in all the games. But, Tyler, Alabama tonight. Again, Florida coming up on going back to the schedule here, as I looked at the wrong one. Alabama tonight, number 17, Mississippi on noon Sunday. So count on that. That'll be a lot of fun. Then next week, Missouri here in Columbia, March the 1st. That's Sunday at Kentucky, and then they go to the women's tournament up in Greenville.
Yeah, you got a couple challenges to close out the regular season. I think we looked at LSU, especially being on the road, as the last major hurdle. But, yeah, you can run into some tricky stuff with Alabama on the road tonight. So you certainly can't let your guard down. Again, we view South Carolina as better than all those teams. But we also view South Carolina as better than Oklahoma, and they went out there and got tripped up. You're in sole possession of the SEC right now. You have more wiggle room. Obviously, they want to close out the regular season with momentum heading into the SEC tournament. And, again, I don't think anybody doubts their ability to be able to close out this stretch strong as well.
In our first ever edition of God is Great, Beer is Good, and People are Crazy.
Okay.
we're not going to play the audio. We don't have the audio. I don't even know. I didn't listen to the whole thing, and I don't know if it's foul-mouthed or not. But if you haven't seen it, it's making its rounds. It's gone viral. Flau'jae Johnson's mother claims that her daughter is winning in real life over the University of South Carolina, and that regardless, she's not worried about the loss last week, that her daughter will be drafted higher than all the South Carolina players.
That's what makes her feel good. Okay.
Clearly, Dawn Staley and South Carolina have broken this lady. Now, remember the other thing about Flau'jae Johnson. All right, so we got to deal with the mom now.
Yeah.
And the mom, clearly, a little bit of a money grab, clearly a little crazy. Remember who ran on the court? I believe it was to fight Camila Cardoso.
2 years ago at the women's tournament was her brother.
Her brother, Flau'jae Johnson's brother.
Yes.
That family may have a problem with us.
I don't think they like South Carolina very much. Yeah, that's for sure. And I haven't taken the deepest dive into LSU women's basketball Twitter, but they're pretty
Nor have
distraught.
I, by the way.
They're pretty, like, you've really gotten under a team's skin when the excuse train rolls out. And there was like, well, they didn't blow us out. Like, that was kind of the thing that I saw. Well, it was a close game. You know, like, okay, if that makes you feel better, yeah, you didn't lose by 30, whatever, you still lost the game. But, like, it really bothers that fan base and apparently Flau'jae Johnson's mom that they can't get over this hump, right? Like, Kim Mulkey was hired at LSU to beat South Carolina. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Even the national championship a couple years ago had that little asterisk of like, well, you didn't have to go through Carolina to get it. They got eliminated by Iowa in the Final Four. You didn't have to go through them, so that probably keeps her up at night as well. But like, that fan base cannot stand South Carolina because they've not been able to beat them in 80 games, namely the past couple ones since Kim Mulkey's been there.
It is wildly hilarious, and I don't know if we consider Flau'jae Johnson a villain. Like Angel Reese, everything Angel Reese did, whether you liked it or not, came across as a villain. I don't think so about. I don't pay enough attention.
Flau'jae Johnson is a villain in the way of like you respect her as a good player on that team, right? But her like antics are not anything that like drive you crazy, right? Like, Angel Reese leaned into it a little bit. She wasn't afraid to jaw back and do things on the court that maybe upset you. But like Flau'jae Johnson, by all accounts, has never really been that kind of player. Now, yeah, her family members have done some things that get things riled up a little bit, but her individually, no, not necessarily. You're just like, oh, she's one of the reasons why LSU has been as good as they've been these past handful of years. Yeah,
well, maybe it's time to head down and start charging Flau'jae's mother a little bit of rent. Apparently, we are just hanging out in her head. But man, I tell you what, this lady went insane. And if you haven't seen the video, she's in a car, and she's just ranting and raving about her daughter. Her daughter's was the best player on the court. Her daughter is beating South Carolina in real life. That her daughter will be drafted higher.
What does that mean? What does beating someone in real life mean?
Nobody knows. Nobody. It means I've lost my mind because we can't beat you on the court.
Yeah, and look, I don't have a problem with Flau'jae Johnson. She's a great player, and she's going to have a successful career at the next level and all that stuff. That's cool, but I don't know how she's beating Carolina in life. I mean, we got plenty of girls that are getting their own NIL endorsements and doing good things in the community as well, so she's not alone in that.
Look, she'll be drafted. By the way, Tessa Johnson had 21 the other night. Flau'jae Johnson had 21. Joyce Edwards will end up being probably drafted higher than her, but Joyce Edwards is a sophomore and cannot enter the draft. Anyway, there's your edition of God is great, people are good, and God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. Thank you, Billy Currington, for that. 803-404-6100. They are underway in the gold medal game. We'll come back, get you an update on that. And also, we'll talk about Shane Beamer again and keep that conversation going. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air, where we have entered the wild portion of the year. For example, I think it was like about 78 yesterday. Are you aware of what it's going to be on Monday? All right, let me give you a little weather update. It's going to be about 46. So right now, your heating and air unit is getting a complete workout. It's going from working the air conditioner to working the heat, back and forth, back and forth. And you know what? With Columbia summers coming up, you better be prepared to handle even more. Your heating and air unit better be prepared to handle even more. And that's why you need to call AAA Heating and Air. If you're in the market for a new heating and air unit, there is no better time than right now. With AAA Heating and Air, they have guaranteed financing, a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. And how about this? No payments or interest for 12 months. Incredible deals. To learn more, call AAA Heating and Air today, 803-677-1500. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Our good buddy, one of Tyler's co-hosts, Jack Veltri, has just put out the pitching lineup for the weekend just a few minutes ago. No changes to the rotation from last week. It'll be Riley Goodman on Friday against Army, Amp Phillips on Saturday against Navy, and Sunday will feature Brandon Stone against Air Force. I will say this real quick. Given the weather situation, it'll be kind of interesting. I just put this on Twitter to see how Pulmonary kind of how they handle it, given any potential starts, stops, delays, things of that nature that could kind of throw off. You get a guy that warms up, gets going, and then all of a sudden, we got to take an hour and a half break.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see as well because he kind of put the limit on his guys last week at around 70 pitches, right about 3 to 4 innings, and Brendan Stone got 4 innings, but all those guys were right around that 70 pitch mark. Do you bump that up a little bit? Again, weather does play a factor because, Riley Goodman can go out there on Friday, and if he gets there 2 innings, but then it rains, well, you're not going to roll him back out there because he's got to get warmed back up, and you have to go to your bullpen and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage things this weekend. If there is a lot of start-stop or potentially playing double headers, that affects how you use your bullpen as well. I know obviously last week a guy like Josh Gunther was really good in long relief for South Carolina, so you may have to rely on that a little bit more. And you get kind of a mixed bag on like Army struggling to start the year. Navy and Air Force have been pretty good when it comes to scoring runs. So I'm interested to see how this team plays against competition that's maybe a tick better than what you saw in the first 5 games.
803-404-6100. Speaking of Jack Veltri and the Gamecock Central crew, they had an article up recently that caught your attention on something that Shane Beamer talked about.
Yeah.
But it talked about things that South Carolina, that Shane wants to change, and then you had some thoughts on things that don't need to change.
Yeah, so Wes and Chris got to sit down with him recently, and they're putting out these periodic articles about those conversations, and I encourage you to go over to GamecockCentral.com and read the full thoughts and comments of Shane Beamer. But Chris put out the article yesterday on 3 very specific things that Beamer is wanting to change this offseason to make 2026 better. One of them is roster age and production. One of them is football 101, and another one is leadership. And I think, the leadership thing is something we talk about a lot, obviously, as it seemed to certainly be lacking this past year compared to in 2024. We obviously knew they wanted to get older and more experience in the portal. And then basically football 101 is going back to fundamentals, like making sure there's not any stone unturned on everybody's understanding of the game of football, as silly as that sounds, because we saw those issues with this team last year.
I will say this, and I don't want to I'm not trying to put Shane Beamer down or anything like that, because you mentioned the football 101. And something that kind of jumps out to me, there have been some coaching decisions made that have been very questionable since Pete Lembo has left.
Time management at the end of halves. Saw that a couple times last year.
And so, let's start with things that need to change. One of them is going to need to be Shane addressing how he handles and coaches games and who is the reliable person that is next to him. No offense to Joe DeCamillis. I don't know if that was necessarily supposed to be his role. I don't know if it should be Sean Elliott's role, given his, who he is kind of is. But there is a notable difference, a very notable difference. Now, South Carolina won 9 games without Pete Lembo.
Yeah.
All right. Let's be clear about that. But obviously this year, there are some things that maybe are done a little differently that might have gotten you, I know 5 wins nobody cares about, maybe 6. My point is, when I hear you say when I hear Shane say, and we bring it up, when we start with football 101, I'm kind of going, all right, I agree with you, but that starts with you.
Yeah, there is certainly a portion of it where, hey, you got to look in the mirror and address your own issues there as well, because you're right. We saw end-of-game situations, some clock management that was kind of funky a season ago. And, yeah, Joe DeCamillis was also that associate head coach, just like Pete Lembo was. And I don't know if that is his specific job or if that's somebody else that's supposed to be in Shane Beamer's ear. Hey, think about this, look at this, here's the situation, or whatever it may be. But that's something that does definitely need to get cleaned up. And did that cost you any games last year? Maybe, maybe not. But especially for a tough schedule this year, you can't be at risk of putting yourself in a situation where you mismanage something that ends up blowing what could be one of many valuable wins you're trying to get this upcoming season. So you're right. You got to start by looking yourself in the mirror, but there are also elements of it too, of just like the dumb penalties, procedural stuff. Like, and I think in this portal era, that's something we overlook, especially when you're bringing in guys that have a lot of experience. Like, oh, everybody knows football. Everybody knows the fundamentals. Most of these guys have been playing Pop Warner since they were 5 years old or whatever. But when you have the struggles you did a year ago, especially when it came to the penalties, starting from scratch isn't a bad thing either. Like, hey, let's get the fundamentals. If you're the starting center coming in, Boaz Stanley played football at Troy before. Clearly, he was having trouble snapping the ball. I've never seen so many illegal snap penalties on one center in my entire life. That's something that I'm sure they didn't focus on in the offseason because you thought he was good. So if Cam Miller's going to come in and be your starting center from Purdue or whatever it may be, is he prepared? Like, or UCF, I think.
Carter Miller.
Carter Miller, sorry.
Yeah.
Is he down on those fundamentals? Like, do you need to get in there and work with him on snap counts? Like, as dumb and basic as it sounds, you don't need to leave any stone unturned because that bit you in the butt last year.
So what were the others that you had there?
Yeah, so you have leadership, obviously, which is something that
we talked about that.
We talked about that.
And then one of us got tweeted at by the coach.
And you know, he did address there was leadership on the team. It's not like it was devoid of it, but it wasn't the same as it was the prior year. And we as fans, media, couldn't see it, right? You could see in 2024 where the leadership was, who the guys that really stood out, that were, you know, rallying the troops on the sidelines, that kind of stuff. You didn't quite see that in the same way a season ago. Now, going out there and getting experienced guys in the portal doesn't guarantee that, but you hope that bringing in more of that experience, you can find those guys in there in addition to guys that are already on your team, stepping up into those bigger roles as well, because to be successful, you have to have that consistent leadership in college football.
And then, so leadership, football 101.
And then roster, age, and experience, which, again, based on what we've look at, I think they've addressed that pretty well. Not all these guys are going to play. Some of them are depth pieces and are just going to fill out your roster, but you've gone out there and gotten a lot of guys that have played a lot of football, which is good.
Well, I think to go back, I don't remember the exact stat, but we read it a couple weeks ago. You might have had it. South Carolina, in terms of snaps by offensive linemen brought in.
The most in the entire country.
The most. So in the position that you were thinking of, maybe the most, you have upgraded that position with at least on the field experience.
Yeah.
Is it good on the field experience? Is it bad? Like you mentioned with Carter Miller, you know, we'll learn. Boaz Stanley played a good bit previously at Troy and was considered a guy that was going to be able to come in and help, but he wasn't. And so, you know, the guys you brought in. But I'm with you on that now. Flip that for just a second. One thing, I tell you, we'll come back to that because we got Doug Turnbull, and I want to give him his proper time. Big race this weekend. Want to let you and him break that down and also look back at the Daytona 500. I think we talked about it. You wanted the story to be about the race of Daytona 500, and I think that's exactly what both of y'all got.
Yep.
So I want y'all to hammer that and give us a little preview of NASCAR. Hockey is under the way, just at about the just sliding under the 10-minute mark in the first period, 0-0 in the gold medal match. I think it's fair to say it would be an upset if we lost.
Yeah, America's the favorite.
Not a huge upset.
Yeah, not a huge upset because it's Canada, but yes, America's the favorite.
All right, 803-404-6100. Our good buddy Doug Fireball Turnbull joins us next to talk about this weekend's race in Atlanta.
Zane Smith with him. On the bottom is Tyler Reddick. They come up single file. Zane Smith's going to have one shot at Chase Elliott, NASCAR champion, most popular driver, trying for the win, and Reddick to the top side. He's got help. Riley Herbst, his teammate. Reddick drops to the bottom. Alongside Elliott, in the wall goes Herbst, and Tyler Reddick comes to the line. Wow. A shower of sparks behind him.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. That was called Mike Joy on Fox Sports on Sunday of a chaotic final lap in the Daytona 500 as Tyler Reddick does indeed pick up the victory, outlasting a couple wrecks there on that final lap to win for 23XI Racing and Michael Jordan. And as we welcome in our guy Doug Turnbull from the Performance Racing Network on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Doug, as always, the Daytona 500 typically delivers, and we got one of the more chaotic final laps I think you'll ever see.
One of the more chaotic, but at least it crowned, a rightful champion of the race. I know Tyler Reddick only led one lap at the end of it, but he's somebody that's a front runner and was right there in the mix at the end, and you didn't see, and I'm not throwing shade at William Byron, but really the last 2 years, the 2 years he won, William Byron was 11th or 7th on the beginning of the final lap and just drove through the wreck. And so it was good to see him. Let me put it this way. It was a chaotic final lap, but it was good to see Tyler Reddick make race-winning moves up and then under Chase Elliott, right? And without making contact and just the right amount of side draft. And it shows how much of a game of inches that is, not only for him not getting wrecked there, but on lap number 4 of that race when B.J. McLeod spun out, he actually nosed into Tyler Reddick's right rear. And if it had been just a couple of more inches or a half a second later, Reddick would have been piled into that crash, and it would have been over 196 laps before the checkered flag.
And for Tyler Reddick, who's a consistent front runner, made the Final Four a couple years ago, had a solid season, all things considered, last year, but didn't go to victory lane. I can't think of any better way to start off 2026 than by breaking that slump, winning the biggest race of his entire career up to this point. Obviously doesn't lock in the playoffs now because they're doing the chase once again, but man, ton of momentum to start off the year and getting that monkey on your back of the question of if you're going to win again, out of the way right away.
The last win that he had was Homestead, autumn 2024, where he also made a 3-wide pass in the last corner over Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin to put himself into that championship 4 race in that previous playoff format, too. So what a clutch guy. He's also had 9 Cup wins, I believe, all 9 different tracks. And he is the only driver ever to win the February Daytona race in the top 3 NASCAR series. All right, so those are weird stats. I know it doesn't make your all-time great just because you've done those things, but Tyler Reddick is very clutch. He's very versatile, and he needed that after last year for darn sure. Also very much worth noting that 23XI, the race-winning team in the Daytona 500, after settling the antitrust suit with NASCAR in that trial back in December.
Yeah, it's funny how those things kind of work out, that the team that was at NASCAR's throats, seemingly, when it came to that trial is the one in victory lane. Great moment there between Jim France and Michael Jordan shaking hands in victory lane. So all that seems to be in the past, and thankfully now we can finally move forward with everything.
I think this is a weekend for the sport to heal. I mean, if you look at it, the 3 winning drivers, or the 3 winning organizations, rather, for NASCAR's top 3 series were all players in that lawsuit in some form, right? With Richard Childress Racing just being Richard Childress' name mentioned in some texts that were derogatory about him. But then Front Row Motorsports in 23XI. So they got wins. But I think NASCAR got a big win. This is just my opinion this weekend, too. We haven't seen the Daytona 500 ratings yet, but it was a sellout race. I think about 150,000 people on property today of the race. The rain came right after the race was over. Nothing was messed up too much by rain. And it just, the energy was there. All 3 races had incredible finishes. They all also had crashes on the last lap that didn't bring out a yellow flag, and we weren't sitting here discussing the race officiating either. So NASCAR got a win, and so did the organizations involved in the lawsuit against it, too.
What, if there was a driver, and I'll ask both of you to this, that came away most disappointed by their opening to the season? Doug, do you have one that probably looks back and goes, man, I missed an opportunity, or that's not how you want to start the season because of what you would like to get off the start that you like to have?
I think just the first one that comes to mind, anybody that wrecked out, of course, And you look at like an Austin Cindric or someone who's on the bottom of the totem pole at Penske, and Alex Bowman in the contract year. But someone else that I thought just had a really good shot was Chase Briscoe, who started on the front row, and he got cleaned out at the end of stage 2 and T-boned Austin Dillon, or rather Austin Dillon T-boned him coming to pit road when they were avoiding a crash, basically. So Chase Briscoe being on the hook and having to ride out there all day in a damaged car, not even be done early, but ride out all day, 10 to 12 laps down or whatever it was. That's just someone that immediately comes to mind.
I'll go with Brad Keselowski, and again, he's still recovering from breaking his femur in the offseason, so I'm interested to see how he fares as you go to a little bit more technical racetracks coming up, and that could have a severe impact on his ability to perform, but he was in a situation where he was charging towards the front there at the very end of the race, and Riley Herbst comes up, they get into the wall, and they end up crashing out, and he had an opportunity to finally get that monkey off his back of winning the Daytona 500 and comes up short, and again, we'll see how much of an effect that injury has on him going forward, but he was, again, close to achieving that goal, and he's going to have to wait at least another year for that. So disappointing for him for sure.
Well, yeah, no guarantees, right, that you'll be in that position in another year. So you're absolutely right. He's come very close before and is a really good super speedway racer. And you mentioned about the technical tracks coming up. Maybe not as much Echo Park Speedway this weekend, but the weekend after, Circuit of the Americas, he has road racing ace Joey Hand on hand to be a substitute driver in case his leg can't handle it there with all the clutching and things that you got to do that are different.
Doug, I want to bring up something a little sobering for a minute, but I've never really got a chance to interview you. Last week or last few days was 25 years since the passing of Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard from you, or we haven't talked to you. I'm just interested in your thoughts on the Intimidator, on number 3, and what you remember in your coverage of him.
And my favorite driver of all time, for sure. And the first race that I watched all the way through was the 2001 Daytona 500. I was a freshman in high school, and it was my dad's favorite driver, and it was just the whole package. That race had the whole package from being on Fox and this new, shiny production to all of the drama within that race to coming down to Dale Earnhardt in third place, fighting to keep the pack back from his two of the 3 cars he owned running up front in the race, and to have Michael Waltrip get his first career win, Dale Earnhardt Jr., his son, of course, finishing second, and then Dale Earnhardt to crash on the last lap. All of that drama, that was a tinderbox that catapulted the sport even more. As terrible as Earnhardt's death was, I certainly was shocked by the news like many people were, and I didn't even realize what big a deal Dale Earnhardt was, the way that a lot of people did. But certainly in the years after learning about it, Fox Sports 1 just recently had the We've Lost Dale Earnhardt documentary, which I highly recommend. You can watch it on YouTube. Everybody go watch that. It can't be said enough that he is one of one. And people have asked me before, and I've talked about, well, who is the next Dale Earnhardt? Who could be it? He was one of one. There wasn't a Dale Earnhardt before him either, so let's stop trying to find one after.
Yeah, and I've told many people this week, I highly encourage to also go watch the Amazon docuseries they did a year ago, which dives into his entire life all the way up to, obviously, the tragic accident back in 2001. And funny enough, Doug and I are liking that. That's the first race I remember watching from flag to flag as well, and it's crazy. It's been 25 years, but no doubt there's nobody that can replace what he was, what he meant to the sport and American culture as a whole, because he was the true everyman, the guy that lived next door to you that, you saw at church or the hardware store, and there's a reason why he's still so revered to this day.
Well, we talked about it yesterday with Tiger Woods and what he did, and I was definitely in 2001 not into NASCAR, but I knew who Dale Earnhardt was.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I remember with no affinity, no connection, nothing for the sport, seeing the wreck, and I remember crying. I was a freshman or sophomore in college,
right?
And knowing the impact that it had on the sporting world. And thank you for those thoughts, Doug. Again, you and Tyler are the professionals. Y'all are the ones that can describe it. I'm just the dude sitting over here right now in the lead of the NASCAR Survivor Challenge.
Well, it's funny because I was keeping up with all of our picks, and Doug picked Kyle Busch, who's down on the pole, ran towards the front all day long. My pick, Cody Ware, flirted with the top 15 for a while, but Stenhouse Jr. camped out at the back for most of the day.
Did.
As the chaos unfolded on the final lap, Doug, lo and behold, there he is coming across the line, crashing in second.
That was crazy. I thought he was going to win it, too, when he was in a drag race with Reddick there. Our points work just by finish, right? It's not by total points in the race. I just want to be clear, right?
That's correct. So he gets the 3 points for finishing highest. You get second for being second highest. I get 1 for being third. And if Stenhouse Jr. had 1, Bill would have gotten 5 extra points for winning the race. So it's currently Bill with 3, you with 2, and me with 1 right now.
All right. Well, let's get our picks in. We've got about a minute and 20 seconds here. So I know I'm in first, so I know I'm picking last.
Yep.
So what do we got?
I'm going to go with another super speedway drafting type of race this weekend at Atlanta/Echo Park Speedway. I'm going to go with Riley Herbst. He was in position there the other day to almost get the win of the Daytona 500. There's a great chance for him to run up front once again, so I'm going to go with 35. How about you, Doug?
Man, that'd be big, okay, because this track revolves a little more finesse and sees the people break away a little more. It's not quite as random as it can be at Daytona. So I'm going to take Ryan Blaney, the driver who has the most points at Echo Park Speedway in the Gen 7 era, but has not won since they've reprofiled the Atlanta track. Ryan Blaney.
All right, Bill. All right, I'm learning here. I'm going boom or bust. Boom or bust.
Okay.
His last 4 races, he's finished 27th, 5th, 26th. And 3rd. Give me Alex Bowman for the win this weekend. I'm taking him because boom or bust, I think he's due.
In July, yeah.
Yeah, finished 3rd back in July.
Yep. No, excited nonetheless. Real quick, you give me on the call this weekend, Doug?
I'll be up at Turn 2, calling turns 1 and 2 for Performance Racing Network for all 3 races this weekend there, and we're hoping the weather stays away.
Yeah, hopefully so. Have fun out there, and we'll recap it with you next week, man.
That sounds great. It's an honor to be on with y'all.
Doug Turnbull there, the Performance Racing Network. We'll come back and wrap up the hour here on The Game.
.147 on a Thursday. Thank you again to Doug Fireball Turnbull for joining us for our NASCAR Survivor Challenge.
Feeling good about being in first place, Bill?
It's where I ought to be. Hey, I'm in the pros now, man.
Yeah.
I'm competing. I'm not playing against the amateurs anymore. You know, Reggie, and I've got 2 championships at the lower level. I got 2 championships. Reggie's got 4. But and we were the ones that knew everything.
Now that you know the nature of how this is going to work, where you're going to have to pick at least every driver at least once this year, did you find yourself paying more attention to drivers you wouldn't otherwise pay attention to this weekend?
So no, that's a great question. What now I'm learning is what Doug and you actually just kind of mentioned, and I put that in the back of the brain about technical tracks, super speedways. So I don't feel like I can just say, well, this guy was really good at that track equals he's going to be really good at this track. It's kind of like Van Ginsberg, who absolutely blows everybody away on road courses.
Yes.
Not that he's awful on super speedways.
Yeah, he's still learning.
But the point is, like, I feel like every week, so I do have right now a system that I'm kind of toying with to make my picks, and I feel confident. We'll see how this week goes. It's a new system.
It is.
But it's a new system for how I'm doing it. But
got to be strategic when you use guys, because you want to make sure you have heavy hitters at the right time.
Well, that's the key, is to try and nail, I'm going to guess, 3 to 4 victories to get, that would be upwards of 20 extra points.
That's a huge swing. Yeah. That's why I put that in there, because you can radically change where you're at pretty quickly if you pick race winners.
So, but thank you to Doug. But no, I wasn't watching it from that standpoint. But again, I've got a little bit of a strategy on how I want to go about doing this. And then I've discovered a site. I discovered a site that tells me, that does what I just read, and it breaks down how they've been at everything and their average finish. And so I just to give you an example, I'll share a small secret. I'm looking right now basically at guys. I'm looking at guys that are averaging right around the middle of the pack.
Okay. For
that particular race.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because now, if it's a name I know that could win, it's a little bit different.
Sure.
But we'll see. 803-404-6100. Thank you again to Doug Turnbull. If you missed our NASCAR segment, you want to hear any of it, Captain Dave will have that up on our podcast. Anything you've missed from the week, go to our 107.5 The Game website, click on the halftime show. We've had some great stuff all week long. Trey Dyson yesterday, Doug Turnbull today, J.C. Sherbert back on Tuesday. So anything you've missed, you can always go and catch it back there. If you hear somebody else talking about it and like, wait a minute, I can't believe those goobers said that. Let me go back and hear that. So 803-404-6100. To the phone lines we go. Greg wants to weigh in on both NASCAR and something I feel that goes well with NASCAR, boiled peanuts. How you doing, Greg? What's on your mind?
Doing well. But there was a time when boiled peanuts or peanuts of any sort did not go with racing. It was considered bad luck. I learned that firsthand.
That is very true.
My first job was working in a garage here at Columbia, where we had several race cars that ran at Columbia, which was a NASCAR dirt track back in the day. And I walked in the shop one day eating boiled peanuts and got run out. And so number 13, and also the color green was considered bad luck.
This call will be recorded.
Oh, okay. You're excited about the phone call.
Wants to remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the backstory, you and Tyler? What's the backstory of why we're boiled peanuts bad luck?
I don't know. I figured it's a poor man's crop, and they didn't want to be associated with it. I really don't know, but I know boiled peanuts are good. You just couldn't have them around race cars.
Real quick, I do know carrying $50 bills was also bad luck. And I believe Dale Earnhardt once said it was some driver that had died with a $50 bill in his pocket, so he refused to carry $50 bills for the stink of bad luck, obviously, and all that. So there's a lot of superstitions when it comes to racing, and those are just a couple that he nailed there.
Yep, sure was. Enjoyed talking to you. Dale Earnhardt was the best. And Cody Ware? Who in World War picked Cody Ware?
I'm strategic, man.
He
hey,
did.
Listen, I almost got second. He finished only 2 spots behind Kyle Busch.
Yeah, a monkey could win at Daytona a fast car, though.
That's why you can pick the entire field.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all have a good day.
You too,
Thanks,
Greg.
man.
I got a question for you. Okay. Russ brings this up. It's a good question, actually.
Okay.
All right, remind me, how many races is the playoff? 8?
The Chase. It's 10.
10.
Yeah,
good
starting
point.
with the Southern 500.
All right, so we got to think ahead. If you get to those 10 races, let's say we get down to the final 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing you've got to plan it out where you've got 5 racers that are still going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
Or not in the play, but I guess
you can still pick guys that aren't in the chase because they're still out there competing.
Everybody's still
too. Everybody's still competing too. But ideally you'd like to make sure you have good quality guys left for the last couple races because you're probably going to need some valuable swings and points at that point in time. So yeah, that's the strategy behind this.
Russ is giving me advice on our text line, so I'm sitting here, but he made a good point. But you're right. I don't know what I was thinking, but everybody runs in the chase.
They don't cut the field down.
But yeah, 803-404-6100. How you can weigh in on any of that. They are at the end of the first period. I did not look up during our segment.
I believe we're still 0-0.
Still 0-0. All right, they're at the end of the first period, out over in Italy, in Milan for the gold medal match. Yeah, 0-0 at the end of the first intermission. Also coming up later today. You got to get a subscription to be able to watch. I know y'all on the Extra Point Talk with Ashley Chastain Woodard.
Right.
They are out at a big time softball tournament out on the West Coast this week. I saw some pictures. They are at Cathedral City, California, and coming up today at 4 o'clock, it's on Flow Sports, whatever that is. They'll be taking on Washington as part of a really fun tournament out there that they are in, the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic. Washington today, number 10 Nebraska tomorrow at 1 o'clock, number 18 Oregon tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Saturday will feature number 9 UCLA, or South Carolina UCLA.
Rematch last year.
And then also on Saturday, late, actually South Carolina plays both games late, 8:30 Eastern time against UCLA, and then 11 o'clock they'll take on St. Mary's. And then Sunday, they're off Sunday. They get back.
Yeah, they are going to be testing themselves this weekend, that's for sure. But, hey, you put yourself outside your comfort zone, see how you fare, and this will give us a good idea of where this team's at early in the season.
And they had no problem last week rolling through the Carolina Classic, Louisville, Boston University, and Kennesaw State. We'll come back. Hour 3 on the way. Plenty more to get into. You're listening to The Halftime Show. I got to admit, I have fired myself up for the afternoon. Boiled peanuts, maybe a little chicken salad from Old Timey Meat Market on a Tostitos with hot sauce. It's kind of a beautiful day today before we get rain on Saturday, and then next Monday. Have you seen this? Have you two seen this?
It's gonna be cold.
We dip. Yeah, I might be out on Monday. Yeah, we dip back down into like the 40s on Monday. I think it's the high is 46 unless that's changed. 47. I'm sorry. Yes, it evolved. Tomorrow it's supposed to be 80 though. Beautiful day to be out of the park. 2 o'clock. Again, Tyler and I will have everything for you from 12 to 1:40. Brian Edwards will join us. Chris Deering will join us. And then we'll turn it over to the baseball group as they get you set for South Carolina Army at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so and now rain shouldn't be a factor tomorrow, but yeah, rest of the weekend, we'll see if they change anything around doubleheaders. There are other games going on this weekend too with those other teams, so it's not just all right, we're just going to move this other game up, because you got to kind of shift things around. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play with that if they end up having to. You can play in some rain, but not heavy downpours, obviously. So we'll see how much weather ends up coming through Columbia.
Yeah, for those of you wondering, let's give you the whole breakdown. So tomorrow, and I'll be honest, I'm assuming I don't. I'll have to go back and look at the true ticket situation and how they're single game tickets, group tickets. Okay, I'll go back and read that. Upside to having a media pass, you don't ever have to worry about that kind of stuff and think about reading it. Tomorrow, South Carolina Army will be the first game at 2 o'clock. Air Force Navy will follow that at 6 o'clock if you want to catch some college baseball tomorrow that doesn't involve South Carolina right there at Founders Park. Then on Saturday, you've got South Carolina Navy taking on each other at 1 o'clock, weather permitting. We'll see how that goes. And then Air Force Army at 5 o'clock. And on Sunday, 11 a.m., little early baseball, Marshall and Navy. So Marshall shows up randomly. And then South Carolina Air Force at 4 o'clock. And I think by 4 o'clock on Sunday, it is expected to be windy, but the rain will have moved out. Tomorrow, Saturday's the bad day.
Yeah, and there's no Army-Navy matchup this weekend. I'm not sure why that is, but no Army-Navy matchup.
I'm sure that maybe I don't know if they play a 3-game series.
They probably do.
Yeah, something to do with that. But so there are other ball games going on this weekend. Again, tomorrow, Air Force and Navy at 6 o'clock, and then on Saturday around 5 o'clock. Probably be later. My guess is they're gonna find a way to get that South Carolina Navy game in.
Sure.
But Air Force Army scheduled for 5 o'clock on Saturday, and then again Sunday it'll be Marshall and Navy at 11 a.m. and South Carolina Air Force at 4 o'clock. That's scheduled. Sunday will be kind of a fun day around here. You'll have women's basketball taking on Mississippi, and that's going to be a really big game. I've seen a couple big things planned. I believe College Game Day is scheduled to be in town for that, and broadcasting from the court. And then you've also got the baseball game. So Sunday, which should be nice, just windy.
Yep.
I think winds upwards of around 20 miles per hour. But it should be a really nice day to take in some South Carolina athletics, and or sit around and watch NASCAR, to watch PGA, to watch these other events. I've been watching the baseball games on ESPN Plus. I've been watching, obviously, women's basketball. I think it's on ESPN on Sunday. So you can sit around and have boiled peanuts, which we've talked about. The chicken salad, maybe grill out.
Yeah, now you got me wanting some boiled peanuts. I haven't craved those in a while, but have to find a gas station or somewhere to go get some. 'Cause that's the thing. There's certain places to buy boiled peanuts from. Like,
well, it's you got your own. To each his own. Now everybody's got maybe there's one, but I know there's one. I won't. It's right across the dam in Ballantyne. About 90% of you from that area. I don't think it's Ballantyne. Ballantyne is going up toward up the lake. This is right across the dam on the right at a gas station, and probably 90% of you know exactly what that place is and who that guy is. I don't know if he's there today or not. But, yeah, you're right. Everybody's got their own little place, right?
They do. Yeah, my dad used to work at a grocery store, and they always had I think it was the Patches boiled peanuts. They're up at the very front. Very popular item right there by the checkout.
Okay.
I don't know how many grocery stores have those around, but if you can find some, they always smell great. Grab some. Again, I'm more of a side-of-the-road stand kind of person if you can find one of those. But, again, to each their own.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you want to. Yeah, talking a little bit of boiled peanuts, because if you're just tuning in, I opened the show asking, like, hey, is it boiled peanut season? Because I was looking at everything going on with sports this weekend. I was like, man, it's going to be kind of enjoyable. And Tyler shocked me by saying, well, no, he leans boiled peanuts more in the fall than winter.
Yeah.
And I've never thought of boiled peanuts as a winter snack.
We're still in the winter time, so
True.
It's still good for me. But as I get deeper into the spring and into the summer, my thought of eating boiled peanuts wanes a little bit.
Okay. All right. See, mine's the opposite. So if you've got any boiled peanut recipes, though, because, again, I saw one on Gamecock Central last night. Somebody was talking about making them, and I thought this was interesting. They talked about using dill pickle juice.
Ooh,
and
making behind that,
making kind of a dill pickle type boiled peanut.
Yeah. You got your different kinds. Dill pickle, Cajun, obviously is a very popular one. A little bit of heat on them. So yeah, to each their own.
803-404-6100. Last night, South Carolina baseball dominates Gardner-Webb. 12-2. They run rule them in the 8th inning. So the Gamecocks playing better. They've outscored Wofford and Gardner-Webb now 20-4 this week. Will Craddock was kind of the story of the game last night, 3 of 3. And after the game, Captain Dave, Coach Paul Mainieri talked about Will Craddock and a little bit of a man crush from Paul Mainieri, but that might go along. Tyler Head kind of had a little bit of a man crush on him as well. But let's hear Paul Mainieri last night talking about Will Craddock. Which code is it?
I just love me some Will Craddock, to be honest with you. He's been such a fun kid to be around and to coach. And from the day he arrived on campus in the summer even, when he was here in the summer, just a great kid. He's always smiling. He's just so pleasant to be around. And he don't let that smile and that pretty face fool you, though. He's a tiger. I mean, he's a competitor, and he wants to get in there. And he's more than held his own in scrimmage games in the fall as well as in the preseason here. I think the thing I'm most proud about him tonight was how he hung in there with 2 strikes all the time. He drew a walk there at the end. I think he hit that triple, if I'm not mistaken, with 2 strikes on him. So he's starting to recognize pitches a little bit better, the off-speed pitches. But listen, he impacts the ball. He impacts the game. He's going to be I've been telling you this from day one. He's going to be a special player here, and the more he plays, the better he's going to get. He's not going to be perfect. He's not going to reach base 5 times every game. But trust me, he's going to have some days where the game looks a little Greek to him. But he's going to continue to get better. There's no question in my mind about it. He's got all the qualities. I've been around a lot of great players in my coaching career, and I think Will's got a chance to be a really, really outstanding one. Just got to figure out where to play him. We got to make sure we got to find a way to get him into the lineup because he makes an impact on the ball game.
Those are the words of Paul Mainieri, and again, Will Craddock, a 6'3", 225-pound freshman. And Tyler, I mean, again, I start to look at this baseball team and the evolution of this team, and it's only 4 games, and let's be clear, this is not SEC competition they've played.
Right.
But I think maybe some of y'all, maybe I have to convince you to squint a little bit. I should say 4 wins, 5 games. But maybe I have to convince you. But I see pieces there that make me go, all right, this team should be a lot more competitive in SEC play.
Yeah, you like what you've seen out of Tyler Bach and KJ Scobie. Obviously, Talmadge Leroy is off to a really good start of the season. We'll see what Craddock does and how much he factors in to the lineup in a weekend like this. But yeah, and pitching staff's done a really solid job through 5 games so far. So you have pieces in place that tell you can be successful. Again, the quality of competition doesn't match up to what you're going to see in the SEC or even Clemson coming up next weekend, but you have an idea of who can be those guys that kind of lead the way. And again, it was 1 start for Craddock, so we're in the business of overreacting, so we're going to react on what we see last night, but he gives you a lot of reason to be excited about what he's going to be over the course of his first year. He's going to have his ups and downs. That's baseball. That's especially as a freshman in the SEC, but you couldn't have really asked for a better start from him last night, and he just has that pop, right? Certain guys just hit the ball a certain way, and it really screams off the bat. You can't teach that. You just have that or you don't, and Craddock certainly has that from what we saw last night.
What You mentioned those guys that you're kind of looking at, Scobie and Tyler Bach, and now, Will Craddock, who had a great debut. Obviously, one of the guys missing that last night, Paul Maneri said is good to go, is Bo Hollins.
Yes.
And that's a little bit of the problem here.
Craddock started for last night.
Exactly. So Craddock played first base last night. You got Bo Hollins that's still there. So now you, as he's talking about, you're kind of going, all right, how do we fit everybody in? Reese Moore was the DH last night, and Moore on the night had 2 hits, was 2 of 3 from at the plate, had an RBI and a walk as well. So some production from him. They might have a good problem here. I'm interested to see more from this team. Like it's caught my attention a little bit more than just being like.
Well, it felt like at times last year you didn't have enough to fill out your starting 9, and I get it. We're 5 games in, so let's not get too far over our skis here. But as of now, you feel like you have more than what you can fit in that lineup as of right now, which is good. And again, you got the opportunity this weekend to experiment and maybe start Hollins one game and Craddock 2, or vice versa, and kind of figure out what the best options are. Move guys up and down the lineup if you feel the need to do that as well, and try and round things out before next weekend against Clemson.
803-404-6100. Mike weighs in. Tell Tyler, put the hot-boiled peanuts you don't finish and put them in the refrigerator overnight. They're great cold, too.
Okay.
That is true. I feel like that actually is kind of how.
Sure.
Like, you get them and I eat them. Like, hot, cold, doesn't matter to me. Eat them when we get them. But then, then the bag goes in the fridge, and I'm with Mike on that. Then you pull them out. And
I've never tried that.
that might be why I think of it more of as a boat item.
Maybe. Okay. So all right. So when you're on the boat, you're eating them cold.
I would say the majority. I mean, honestly, like, it doesn't matter to me. But to answer your question, yeah, the majority of the time is they've been left over from like a Friday night.
Yeah, and that's, hey, teach their own. I'm not hating on you for eating them at other times of the year. I'm just like, in my experience, it's traditionally been cold weather. But when my next opportunity comes to eat boiled peanuts, I'll throw a few in the fridge and see what happens.
Our good buddy Ricky weighs in, says green peanuts for boiling will be out early April through November. And says Robbie, and he will bring us some regular and spicy. Well, we look forward to it. We're holding you to that.
I'm not going to stop you from doing that.
Yeah, we're going to hold you to that. I know where you work. I'll track you down. 803-404-6100. Do want to give a shout out. How do you handle your parents' birthdays?
I mean, always at least make a phone call if I'm not there for some kind of celebration. But you always have to, give them a call and wish them happy birthday.
Do you still do the gifts for them, or are you just like it? My father's 73 today. Happy birthday, Steve. Happy birthday, Dad. He's 70. He's on the golf course. He's not listening to us at all right now. He's out there at Golden Hills playing golf. But do you still do the gift for the parents?
Do you?
You're going to make me listen really bad here.
If I'm going to be there around the birthday or a party or whatever, then yeah. I mean, sometimes I don't see them for a couple weeks after that, so maybe not then. But yeah, if I know I'm going to be with them or around them, around the birthday, then yeah.
Okay, so you still do gifts besides just I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even do a card anymore. Like, it's my dad. It's me. We're good. Yeah. Happy. He got a phone call on the way in, and
the phone call's the bare minimum, right? You at least have to do that.
We're going to hibachi. The whole family's going to hibachi dinner tomorrow night. So, but happy birthday to him. Happy birthday to my dad. 73 today. Hope he's having a good day. 803-404-6100. How you can weigh in if you want to do so this afternoon. We'll come back. We're going to get into the college football playoff. The Big Ten's playoff plans were leaked. 24-team playoff, 23 at large, 1 G5. We'll discuss this. I don't like it, and I'm going to try and convince you why you don't like it either. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Canada has put a goal up in the second period here. They have taken a 1-0 lead in the gold medal match over in Milan right now. Sliding under 9 minutes to go as I speak. USA down 1-0 against Tyler. And I said it wouldn't be a huge upset. We aren't talking like miracle on ice type upset here if Canada were to beat us. But we are a slight favorite in this thing. But these are the two world powers in terms of the women's hockey game. And of course, we stomped Canada about a week and a half ago, I believe, to the tune of 5-0. But right now, they've got a 1-0 lead on us. And again, this is the gold medal match over in Milan, and we'll keep you updated on that. Also, PGA Tour taking place. The Genesis Invitational out at Pacific Palisades right now is underway. And as I look at the scoreboard right now, by the way, you can check that out here coming up in just a little while, but it's at Riviera Country Club. Ashke, and I can never say this guy's name. He's red hot. Ashke, I think it's Batia. Batia is how we say it. He is 3 under through 6. Rory McIlroy and Colin Morikawa are both 2 under right now, both through 3. Just glancing at the rest of the leaderboard, Sahith Theegala 1 under through 8. Tommy Fleetwood's got himself a little 1 under round going right now as well. So they are underway out at the Pacific Palisades. The round is actually suspended at the moment due to weather, but you can keep up with that throughout the weekend. So you got Olympics, you got hockey going on. The hockey going on right now. You got the Genesis Invitational, and of course baseball, as we've talked about, with South Carolina set to host Army tomorrow, Navy on Saturday, and Air Force on Sunday. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in this afternoon. So the Big Ten, as you know, if you've been following this, the Big Ten really is pushing for the 24-team college football playoff. I don't really know what exactly the SEC, what Greg Sankey wants. 16 seems to be the number he wants, but again, there's a lot of moving parts, fluid situation for what exactly the SEC is kind of going for here, whereas the Big Ten has been very clear this is what they want. And they put out, well, they didn't put out, a document was leaked, Tyler, as it pertained to what their idea of the college football playoff would be. And let me read these to you here. 23 at-large bids, 1 G5 school, so 23 Power 4 schools.
If the G5 wasn't in the top 23.
Okay, yep.
Which I'm assuming they probably would be.
Yep. The top 8 get buys. Round 1 and 2 would be on campus and would start the second week in December.
Correct.
There would be no more conference championship games, no regular season rematches in the first round, and I don't like this.
See, here's my thing. Outside of the number of teams, because I'm not pro 24. I like 12. I've accepted that 16 is going to happen. 24 is too much. I like most of this other stuff, though. Like all these other elements,
yeah,
I can get behind.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just doing the math on this. 16, I think I've bought in. I love 12.
I think 12 is great.
12 is the number, I think. But we're not going to keep it at 12. This thing's going to grow. If it's going to grow, 16 I'm okay with. At that point, at 16, you can set up everything the way you need to and make it all work to fit what we need. However many buys that needs to be. I forget off the top of my head how exactly that bracket plays out. But I like the buy system in that to reward some teams. I agree. I don't know how the part of this that is not being discussed that is going to become a large discussion as we head toward the end of this decade is going to be the conference championship games.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, if you wanted to, and I don't know what number you want to use, 16 or 24 or 12 or whatever, what the conference championship game needs to be is almost the play-in for the Power 4 conferences, for teams 5 and 6, 3 and 4, whatever number you want to come with.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that would have to involve automatic bids if that were the case. And that was an idea that was discussed initially with like 16 is like, okay, you guarantee the top 3 in the SEC, the top 3 in the Big Ten, and so on and so forth, where instead of 1 and 2 playing each other like we have been doing, you do 3 and 4 or whatever combination it is to decide who gets that last spot. With something like this, it'd be wide open, where it's just you're ranked. Basically, if you're ranked inside the top 25, you're in. I guess 25 would be really mad if we go with this format. But I don't think you would be able to need play-ins for that unless you had automatic qualifying spots for each conference.
Well, let's go back to the end of last year. This is the regular season. And the college football playoff ranking at that point had Ohio State and Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Mississippi. Those are your top 6. A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Notre Dame are your 1 through 10.
Yep.
There's there's Notre Dame, by the way, at 10 after the regular season ending. Regular season had come to a close. There's Notre Dame at 10, 2 spots ahead of Miami.
Yes.
And then, remember, Miami would eventually jump Notre Dame. But 10, that's where they were at. I guess my point is, like, if the SEC last year, because you knew Georgia was in. You knew Alabama, we were pretty comfortable Alabama was in. They got beat the way they got beat, and then all of a sudden we get, well, wait a minute, are they in?
I thought they were set up with a safeguard, basically.
But you knew Oklahoma was in, you knew A&M was in, you knew Ole Miss was in. They were all top 9. What if the SEC had looked around and been like, you know what, to make them look a little bit better, we're going to let Texas and Vanderbilt play each other. Texas was 13 at 9-3. Vanderbilt was 14 at 10-2. They'd already played each other in the regular season.
They had.
So you hate that fact that it would have been a rematch. But if the SEC had been kind of wise and be like, you know what, Georgia and Alabama, y'all are going to sit this one out.
Yeah.
We're going to let these two play.
And yes, technically, the conference championship, you're still playing for the opportunity to improve your seeding. It doesn't guarantee you now, this upcoming year, we also have to remember all 4 Power 4 champions are guaranteed a spot in. So by this year's rules, Duke would have gotten in last year, despite being 7-5. So that is something that's changed. So there is a locked-in spot. But as will be the case most years, if you continue to play with your top 2 teams, the Big Ten and the SEC, it's more ceremonial because you already know the winner of that and the loser are likely going to be in. Now, yeah, if you're the loser, you're having to play in the first round, likely on the road or something along those lines. But still, the game, the SEC championship the past 2 years has lost so much juice because it doesn't have the stakes that it used to. Even in the 4-team era, it always had, with the exception of when Georgia and Alabama both still got in, it always had that play-in factor of like, oh, this is almost acting as a de facto quarterfinal round to get you into the semis, and that's gone now, which sucks because it's a great game, it has a great history, and you love pairing up the 2 best teams in the SEC if they haven't already played each other, but I think as the playoff expands, there's not as much of a need for it. The problem is, and this goes back to changing it to maybe a play-in game with your 4th and 5th team or whatever, the city of Atlanta makes a lot of money. The SEC makes a lot of money by having this game, and they're not just going to erase it unless they can find something to supplement that money.
Well, here's the question. Gamecock fans, would you rather play in a singular playoff game and lose, or would you rather win the SEC championship? Now, I'm telling you you're going to lose, but you're in the playoff. You're part of that.
Yep.
And, hypothetically, you can win and you can make a run. But if I said, hey, if you get in the playoff and you make a run and win a national championship, would you rather win an SEC championship? You're always going to say, I'd rather win the national championship. So my question is, what would you rather? Would you rather be in the playoff and all that comes with being in the playoff, but you lose the opening round game, or would you rather win the SEC championship, which now, as you just said, it's kind of an afterthought.
Well, and I think for a program like Carolina, that's a loaded question because it's a program that hasn't won the SEC. If you ask Georgia and Alabama and all these other schools that have plenty of those trophies, they say, yeah, forget the title game. We're wanting to go in the playoff. So I think most Carolina fans would lean towards the SEC title because that's a trophy and an accomplishment you've not had.
I don't know.
I think I would go with the majority, I think, personally.
We'll throw it up on the poll.
We can throw it up on the poll.
We'll answer it back tomorrow, 803-404-6100. If you want to weigh in on that, what would you rather have? A guaranteed SEC championship, given even what it means now, or would you rather play in a college football playoff game and lose the first round, but you get to play in the college football playoff? 803-404-6100. We'll come back, get a few results from that, and we'll also talk a little more Shane Beamer and what is acceptable for next year. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Jeff in Georgia doesn't get the question. If you win the SEC championship, you will play in the playoffs. The question answers itself. Win the SEC. All right, you're missing the question there. Don't either play the game or don't. Which one do you want? Doesn't matter. Pick them.
Yeah, we're trying to
Pick
ask the questions of those situations in a vacuum,
what I am.
which he's not wrong.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal on that. What is the meaning of any of the championship games anymore?
Well, I think it depends on which one you're talking about, because
And by the way, let me.
Yeah.
You make a great point. To Ohio State, to probably Michigan, maybe Oregon, the Big Ten championship doesn't matter anymore. To Alabama, to Georgia, probably Florida's won plenty of them. The SEC championship doesn't matter anymore. You can go through. I don't know about the Big 12. I can't speak. And then for Clemson, the ACC championship, as long as you're in the playoff, doesn't matter. The point being on that is the championship games have completely changed. 5 years ago, this wouldn't be a question to me.
Yeah, no, 5 years ago, when in the middle of the 14 playoff, almost all of them were de facto play-in games where you were very hard-pressed. Georgia got in, Michigan got in, Ohio State got in. I think that's all.
Alabama,
TCU,
LSU got in 1 year.
TCU got in by not winning or not being a part of their conference championship. That was back to the BCS era. That was something different. But more often than not, it was often a play-in that if you wanted to be in the playoff, you had to win that game, which in a way was kind of like de facto quarterfinals. And that's gone away. And yeah, like last year, Texas Tech was going to be in regardless, but BYU needed to win to get in. Virginia needed to win to get in. They didn't do it, obviously. So you have situations where there are teams that do have to go through those games to get in, or else they're on the outside looking in. But with the big ones, the SEC and the Big Ten, more often than not, you're going to be hard-pressed to find years where one of the teams is at risk of not being in by losing the championship game.
Which do you think is more? I probably could have worded it to say, what do you think is more prestigious? Not what would you rather. What do you think is more prestigious? To win a league championship, or to play in the college football playoff? Now, the caveat to that is if you play in the college football playoff and you make a run, and you're in the championship game.
Yeah.
Probably the league championship doesn't matter. But the point being on that question is, I guess, I'm trying to figure out what the SEC championship still means.
I think coaches now are going to be judged on playoff appearances over conference championships.
Right.
So I would say there's more value in being in the playoff, even if, all right, you made the playoff 4 times, you only won one of those games. That's in today's world, I feel like better than saying, hey, you won the SEC title twice. Now, yes, again, that would have gotten you in the playoff anyway, but there's more value of being in the dance.
Let me change it. And I should have. I should have changed this on Twitter. And I might go back. It's Twitter. You can always just put out another tweet. Would you rather win the SEC championship or do what Mississippi did and make a run but lose and not get to the championship?
I think you'd rather be Ole Miss.
See that? Okay.
Yeah, because you were on the doorstep of making the national title. They didn't care that they weren't in Atlanta. Nobody was thinking about that.
But here's the thing. So, like, a couple of people weigh in, and I get it. Wesley says you don't get trophies for making it to the first game of the playoff and losing. Most teams that do that get roasted and told why another team should have gotten in over them. It's a good point about the trophy. But the same thing, Mississippi would be the same way. Had one texter, I think, who won some money there, or won some tickets. Jeff goes with SEC all day long. Stacy goes with SEC championship. Christian goes with playoff. So, the point being is, to me, though, where is the meaning of the SEC championship when we talk about expanding these college football playoffs? And at 12, the champions still have a little meaning. Meaning.
You're still playing for something.
You go to 16. Now you're playing an exhibition game, essentially.
Yeah, and again, if you ask a lot of coaches, they'd be like, I'd rather have the week off to get prepared than playing for the trophy.
And so that's yeah, and I'm with you. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in on that. I might go back and alter that question or put out a new poll question, because that might be the bigger question. Would you rather win the SEC championship, or would you rather do what Mississippi did and make a run, but you don't get to the national championship? That's, I think, a little bit more of a tougher decision, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You got to make a little bit more of a bigger decision on what you value to the importance of your program. 803-404-6100, weigh in on that. We talked earlier. there's an article on Gamecock Central. Shane Beamer addressed 3 things that he wants to change with his program. You mentioned football IQ, football 101. You mentioned leadership, maturity, age. He's done that. And then what was the third one?
Leadership.
Oh, okay. I thought leadership, maturity, all that was.
No, it's 2 different ones. Roster, age, and
roster. That was it.
and
Football
projection,
101, leadership,
and then leadership. And
Okay.
again, 1 and 3 kind of go hand in hand there. But that's the specific things that he outlined of like, hey, this is what we needed to change this offseason.
So now, what would be something that we think, you and I think, that he would not need to change right now? What is something about this football program that you look at and you say, we're not going to change that? And I've got an answer, but I don't know if it fits what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it's going to sound cliche, but culture. I mean, we talk about it all the time that we give him credit that in 6 years you've had very few incidents, and like the Devontae Miles thing that cropped up last week was over and done with pretty quick. He gets arrested. Again, we'll let the legal process play out on what he did do or didn't do, but there was kind of a zero tolerance, like, hey, man, you're not a part of the team anymore. He's gone. It's not an issue anymore. And again, you can count on one hand how many of those situations have popped up in 6 years, which, considering the landscape of college football, it's pretty impressive.
I was going to go, I don't know how to quantify this because I was just going to say defense. Like, I feel like whatever.
Defense has been consistently good.
That's what I was going to say. Whatever Clayton White's doing and however that's working, you just leave that alone.
Yeah.
Let him cook, if you will, to quote the kids. Mm-hmm. Let him do what he is doing, and I think he's set up for another very solid defensive year. Those linebackers are a year older. I love that. I think the secondary is going to, again, be pretty strong with what they've got, even in losing potentially 2 top 3 round draft picks and a first rounder, Brandon Cisse, and then, again, a top 3 round draft pick probably in Jalen Kilgore. I think you're going to be just fine there. You also lose DQ Smith, who was around for about 17 years. But you should be, I think, okay in the secondary. And then the defensive line, I don't know if they went out and got a stud on the interior of the defensive line, but I feel like they upgraded their depth and their talent there, if that makes sense. They didn't go get a 5-star type, okay, this guy's going to come in and be an animal. But I feel like between TD, however we say his name, between several of the other defensive line prospects, you go, okay, I think we upgraded what we were trying to accomplish.
You feel like you've got good depth and good experience there. Devontae Miles does take a little chip out of that, obviously, but I think you still like what you're working with in that area, which, again, is always going to be a big point of emphasis, especially in the SEC, because games are won and lost in the trenches.
So that might have been that Wednesday you weren't here, and I talked about the Devontae Miles. You just need one guy to step up. The very end of last year, Troy Pike was starting to step up a little bit at the very end. Yep. I think the Devontae Miles thing is minuscule at best, and I think you've got other guys. What I'm interested to see now that Travian Robertson is back and he's going to get spring to work with some of the guys. What's a guy like Caleb Williams, a redshirt freshman, look like? What's a guy like Christian Ingram, another redshirt freshman? I mean, these two guys right there, they're redshirt freshmen, but on the most recent roster that was put out, Christian Ingram is listed at 6'6", 305 pounds. Caleb Williams, the other redshirt freshman defensive tackle, is listed at 6'5", 290 pounds. That's 2 big boys to be built around. And then you got a guy like Kelby Collins, who's at 6'4", 285.
Yeah. Again, we'll see from a development standpoint what kind of steps those guys take forward as they enter second years of guys coming in from the portal, as you mentioned there, and how deep you can rotate. Because that's the question. Is like, yeah, feasibly all these guys look capable of doing it, but how many of them do you trust to play on a consistent basis? Because 2 years ago you had a solid rotation of about 5 to 6 guys when everybody was healthy, and you would love to have that again.
Jordan Thomas is a redshirt sophomore coming from Georgia. He's going to be expected to contribute right away. TD, Tomiwa Dua Rajajia.
Sure.
You get the point. Kelby Collins is a transfer. That's 3 right there that you're instantly looking at right off the bat that have got to come in and produce. And that, again, Troy Pikes gives you 4. And as Tyler just pointed out, all right, if you can get 2 more guys, that's a nice 6-man rotation to be able to run with.
Yep.
803-404-6100. We'll come back and wrap up the Thursday program, and then we're off to get boiled peanuts and something else. I don't know. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Final segment of the show coming up tomorrow. Again, Brian Edwards of Vegas Insider. We've got an incredible college basketball weekend coming up on Saturday. I watched this all last night, and I kind of laughed, and I told Tyler, for whatever reason, it didn't register until I said it out loud to him during the show, even though last night as I was watching basketball. By the way, Arkansas-Alabama last night was
insane.
It was wild. I'll come back to that in a minute. But coming up Saturday in college hoops, South Carolina, of course, will host Mississippi State coming up at 1 o'clock. That'll be on Saturday over at Colonial Life Arena. The Gamecocks will be set for that game. Mississippi State last night was taking on Auburn, and they won. Mississippi State's won 2 in a row. That's great. The team that we kind of looked at and were like, might be able to take them down. Mississippi State last night beat Auburn at the Humphreys Arena, or Humphreys Coliseum, 91-85. So they've won 2 in a row coming to town. They've won actually 3 of their last 6. So, in given Mississippi State's season, winning 3 of your last 6, they're red hot. Look out.
Yep.
But on Saturday at 3 o'clock, number 2 plays number 4. And again, I didn't for whatever reason, this just never registered until today. But Saturday at 3 o'clock, number 2, Houston plays number 4, Arizona. That game will be in Houston. And then at 6:30 in D.C., in Washington, D.C., is number 1 versus number 3.
Yeah,
Michigan and Duke take on each other at Capital One Arena.
It's a de facto Final Four in season.
Yeah, very odd. I don't know how this didn't register last night.
The odds of that, I don't know if it's ever happened before. I doubt that it has during the regular season. Obviously, the odds of that happening pretty slim. So yeah, should be good. You also have Iowa State, BYU playing late on Saturday night as well. So that should be a good matchup. You got a lot of really, really good basketball across the country this weekend.
Yes, the college basketball season. And I think they're fun storylines. Now, they're stuff that needs to be discussed. Tomorrow, we'll get into a little bit of the Darren Peterson situation, which is, if you're not paying attention to this, I look forward to one day being able to get a 30 for 30 on Darren Peterson and what exactly is transpiring with him. Last night, he pulled himself out after about 18 minutes. Bill Self last night, after the game, finally exhibited some frustration with Darren Peterson. Bill Self said last night, I didn't anticipate that tonight at all. I thought he was good to go, but we only got 18 minutes out of him. That's disappointing because he could have had a really good night. Darren Peterson's going to be a top 3 draft pick. Very likely could be number 1, depending on how a franchise feels about what he's done this year. But there's a lot of questions about, you paid money. There's a lot of reports, $3 million for Darren Peterson to go to Kansas.
Yep.
And he basically, he just sat out the Arizona game, a key game a couple weeks ago, because he just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Doesn't even.
It's been an ongoing issue for Kansas this year, and the debate is how legitimate are these injuries, how sick is he actually feeling? That those things are kind of hard to prove there, and it doesn't really seem like it's changing his draft stock at all.
No.
So if you're getting paid $3 million to kind of go through the motions and nobody's really able to stop you, it's a hate the don't hate the player, hate the game type of thing.
Yeah.
He's just kind of leveraging this more than we've seen anybody do up to this point.
So you got that situation that's taking place. Then you got Mick Cronin out here just being grade A, number 1 professionally jerk, absolute jerk. And here's Mick Cronin the other day, post Michigan State. They get beat by Michigan State in East Lansing. The Michigan State student section, the Is Zone, was chanting, not even like derogatory. They were just heckling. They were doing what student sections were doing. So I don't really know the true nature of the question here, but here's Mick Cronin being your grade A, number 1 in the country rear end after the game to a reporter.
What was your thoughts in the student section chanting Booker's name?
I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section.
I just meant overall the way that you
I would like to give you a kudos for the worst question I've ever been asked.
Did you like
You should take it.
the preparation of
Do you really think I care about the other team's
No, I don't
student
think you care about the other
Are you
team.
raising your voice at me?
No, I'm just
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Come on, dude.
No reason.
Come on. Yes, you were. Everybody's standing here listening to you. Everybody, this is on camera. They can hear you. I answered the question. I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section. I coach UCLA. I don't care about Michigan State students. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, Mick. I mean, I'm not going to try and defend the question itself. Like, I don't know exactly where the reporter was going with the question because, again, as you heard him, all they were doing was chanting a player's name.
Right.
It wasn't like racial or religious or.
All you just have to do is reiterate. I don't care what they say. Next question.
That's the
It's
point.
like you're raising your voice at me. That's when it kind of escalates.
And I feel bad for it because I do that. Like, you get into but because I hear the technically the reporter does raise his voice, but his voice does that thing that mine will tend to do where it hits a different pitch.
Octave, yeah.
Yeah, like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you said that? I don't understand.
Do you have a coach in your career that you've angered in person like that? Not on Twitter, but in person?
That I angered?
That you angered in a similar nature where maybe they went off on you a little bit?
Aside from my father?
Yeah, aside from him. That's different.
The funniest one I ever had, because he didn't really get mad, and it was just I didn't understand what we were doing, and there was a drill when I was playing for Bailey Harris, and we were doing help side defense. I'll never forget. I literally never because I still laugh about it to this day, and Bailey didn't curse. Coach Harris didn't curse. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better role model for a not only as a human being, but a basketball coach. But so like when he would truly get upset at us, it helped that we won a lot. Like it was always a little bit of a surprise. Well, we're at practice one time. I'll never forget, Lexington Intermediate School, and we're doing a help side defense. And the way he explained the drill, he's on one side with the ball, and you had to like defend a guy and then kind of come across and do something. Well, he just takes the ball and like dribbles in and makes a layup.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even know what he's doing. Like, I didn't even know this was part of the drill. And he just goes off on me for not coming over to stop him. And it's just yelling at me. And I'm like, I didn't know you could. I didn't know you were actually playing offense.
Right.
That's about the closest I've got.
Okay.
On that.
Fair.
Coach, he taught. So now I had to be prepared for everything. All right, we've had a lot of fun. We will carry you to 140 tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.